So in this clip we can see that Bayindir is forced to go long after Arsenal have successfully cut off his short passing options in United's build-up phase, and this is where we see the first significant difference between having Sesko as a centre forward as opposed to Højlund, and that is their effectiveness in aerial duels from these types of long direct passes. So you can see here that Sesko's up against Gabriel, who is probably the most aerially dominant centre-back in world football right now. And whilst Gabriel still wins a header, Sesko doesn't get dominated, and I would even argue that whilst he doesn't win the aerial duel outright, he manages the situation to get the outcome he wants. As the ball's in the air, you can see him initially check over his left shoulder, which allows him to gain full awareness of the angle that Gabriel is coming from, which then allows him to adjust his body positioning accordingly. Now in contrast, in this type of situation last season, we would often see Højlund not checking his shoulder at all, entangled in a physical duel with his back to goal, standing and jumping from a static start, whilst the centre-back behind was able to either completely dominate him with the physical duel or gain momentum with his run forward at the exact angle that he wanted, which would allow most centre-backs to completely dominate Højlund in these aerial duels, with the centre-back able to make the resulting clearance into the area he wanted and allowing the opposition most of the time to regain possession. However, with Sesko, his quick check of the shoulder allows him to then get across Gabriel's run towards the ball with his left leg, blocking his momentum and thereby stopping the leverage that he can get on his jump and altering the angle at which he's going to head the ball. With Sesko then turning to face the ball and pinning Gabriel on his back and forcing him to have to jump over Sesko in order to head the ball, which restricts both the power and the direction that Gabriel is able to get on the header, resulting in a loose ball falling to Ahmad on United's right side. And so whilst with Højlund there, Gabriel most likely heads the ball back into United's defensive third or to one of the Arsenal players in the United half, with Sesko, United are able to gain possession on the halfway line, with Arsenal's front and midfield lines now caught high up the pitch. But before I go any further, if you want to check out any cheap, good quality football jerseys, go over to jerseyfifa.co. They've got a variety of different current season and retro jerseys, including the new season jerseys for the 25-26 season. They sent me over the new Manchester United home shirt with Bruno Fernandes on the back, as well as this 06-07 white Manchester United away shirt with Ronaldo number 7 on the back, alongside this Zinedine Zidane Juventus shirt from the 1990s as well. If you use code ATLANTIS at checkout, you'll get a 10% discount, so I'll leave a link in the description and in the comments section below. And just to prove that I haven't overanalyzed this clip like an A-level English teacher with some overhyped book from 1923, here's another example from the game, where once again we can see Sesko using his technique of switching from looking at the ball to the centre-back, doing so whilst the ball is in mid-air, which if you've ever tried to do it whilst playing football, you'll know is incredibly hard to do, especially once you consider the pace of the passes and the reaction speeds and physicality of the centre-backs in the Premier League. Euro has possession in the middle third just inside the United half, and you can see that United don't have any passing options through the centre, with the pass into Dorgu in the half space being cut off by Zubimendi. Now I do think that United need to be more intentional with playing through the centre of the pitch in the middle third during these phases of play, as in general that will be a more reliable and consistent method of progressing the ball forward, although with a striker like Sesko, he's able to significantly increase the probability of United retaining possession from these sorts of long direct passes. See, whilst Højlund would likely make the same run, without doubt, we wouldn't see him do what Sesko does here. Sesko makes a run between the two Arsenal centre-backs, but in quite an unusual manner, he actually completely turns his back on the ball as it is in mid-air, literally facing Gabriel face to face, with the ball about to come over Saliba, so it's not even that far away. And whilst it initially looks like the start of a TikTok fail clip, somehow he's able to turn quickly without losing flight of the ball or awareness of where Gabriel is, before actually managing to pin himself against Gabriel, which halts his momentum generated from his run towards the ball, usually a technique that we see from defenders from crossing situations, trying to stop the striker gaining momentum from the jump. But using this technique against a centre-back allows Sesko to bring the ball down on his chest, to his feet, and now he's got the ball under full control, holding off the pressure from Gabriel behind. And whilst the side heel pass into Dorgu doesn't quite come off, the ball eventually falls to Agate on the edge of the final third. And so simply by having Sesko as a centre forward as opposed to Højlund, But also compared to most other players, including the likes of Cunha and Xerxes, this has allowed United to progress the ball from in front of the Arsenal midfield line around the halfway line to this situation right on the edge of the defensive third, where United have a 2v1 on the right side, potentially creating a 2v1 situation with Ahmad running off Madueke, and this was done just by 2 passes without even having to play through the Arsenal defensive structure. Instead, just by using one fairly straight long pass over the back line into Sesko and letting him do the connecting work on his own in a situation where against most centre forwards, Gabriel would absolutely dominate and make the clearance. And this is why simply just looking at goal scoring numbers and comparing Højlund and Sesko is really and truly the analysis of someone who might as well just be flipping a coin to decide whether a player is a good signing or not. Because the elements of Sesko's game like this have a significant unquantifiable benefit to United's ability to create chances in the final third, just for allowing us to progress the ball into these sorts of positions that we otherwise wouldn't be able to do in such a direct and simple manner. Now this next clip showcases another massive improvement with the addition of Sesko from Højlund, this time with Sesko's link play via his passing in the middle third. Dorgu goes high and Bruno Fernandes wins the header, knocking it into the path of Sesko. And as Bruno is winning the header, what you can see is firstly that Sesko isn't right up against Saliba, he's standing a few steps in front of him, which isn't something that Højlund necessarily wouldn't do in the same situation, but in general I think Højlund's issue is that he initiates a physical battle by getting tight with the centre-back at the wrong times, usually doing so far too early on in the move, whereas Sesko seems more willing to flow, but then becomes hyper-aggressive physically when he recognises that it's necessary, pinning the centre-back for a specific benefit. But also on the far right side you can see the advantage of using a 3-4-3 with a wing back behind an interior forward, as whilst Mbeumo is high, pinning Miles Lewis-Skelly, the Arsenal left back deep, Ahmad behind playing as a right wing back rather than a full back is able to hold a more advanced position on the outside of Arsenal's left-sided midfielder Noni Madueke, compared to the position he would be able to hold if he was playing as a right back in a back four due to the extra centre back behind him. And we can see the benefit of this as well as Sesko's superior technical ability, as when Bruno's header falls into the path of Sesko, with Saliba following his movement deep towards the ball, in this situation, even if the ball was on his left side and the space was on United's left, there's no way we would see Højlund play this switch of play first time. He'd at least have to take a touch to get the ball under control, which even if it was optimal, is firstly going to invite pressure, making it harder for him to pull off this kind of switch of play, but it would also give Madueke an extra second or so to recover his high position, wiping out the few yards of advantage that Ahmad has on United's right side. But not only does Sesko not need a touch, but his first time side-footed pass as the ball is bouncing is hit with perfect weight and direction, allowing Ahmad to run onto the ball rather than playing it directly to his feet, which now gives United a 2v1 down the right side from the sort of situation which at best Højlund would have retained possession with a backwards pass, failing to take advantage of Madueke's high positioning, and at worst would have invited pressure and potentially lost the ball. And this next example first showcases Sesko's reading of the game and movement, that enables him to be almost magnetic to the ball inside of the box, and Mbeumo cuts in to deliver a cross from the right side, and you can see in the centre that there's a cluster with Sesko and Cunha up against Gabriel and Zubimendi, and at this point Sesko is round the back of the pack. But as the ball comes in, he's able to use a few quick short steps to manoeuvre himself between Gabriel and Zubimendi, then moving towards the ball in front of Zubimendi to receive it, and his first touch is perfect, allowing him to control it in the air, and with his second touch, with the ball not even touching the ground, he's able to guide it into the path of De Ligt, which only sets up a shooting opportunity that is eventually blocked, but it still shows how Sesko's anticipation, movement and ball control will enable United to create shooting opportunities from the sorts of positions that would usually result in a clearance from the opposition without him. So let me know what you think of my analysis of Sesko against Arsenal, and if you want to check out any cheap, good quality football jerseys, go over to jerseyfifa.co. You can use code ATLANTIS at checkout for a 10% discount. I'll leave a link in the description and comment section below, and I'll also leave my Patreon linked on the end screen now as well.